If you do have a Bible with you or on your phone, you can turn to Psalm 15. It's because a couple weeks ago I was reading this psalm and something hit me as I was reading it, and then God started talking to me. It's like, well, what do you know about reproach? I think people kind of feel sort of bad to other people. I'm like, so I thought, well, let me find some definitions. And then God says to me a whole lot of other stuff. And I really didn't have much stuff to go on except what God is really pouring into me. There was a couple articles I read, and I looked up some stuff on YouTube, and most of it wasn't really that helpful. It was either repetitive or not hitting the mark that God was trying to show me. Hey, Miss Maria, come on in. We're just starting.
Okay. Don't mean to disrupt.
It's okay. A lot of times we have people coming in for another half an hour sometimes. You just never know.
Yeah.
Congratulations for y'all on coming out in this cold, wet, nasty weather. You're like, whoa, this is kind of chilly willy. But my son is up in Boston where it was like -3, and I think in the -20s for wind chill. I'm like, don't go out. Don't go out. Your eyeballs are going to freeze shut. Like, don't do it. It's like, Mom. Like, no, don't you mom me. I ain't coming up there and ungluing your eyeballs. It's going to take me 7 hours by train, mister, just to get up there and pop your eyeballs. He's like, he thinks I'm insane. I know he does. Now, as I was saying, a couple weeks ago, God put this into me. We're starting at Psalm 15. Okay. And then we're going to go, and this is going to be a tough ride. I think this is a little bit a hard subject, because we often don't, I think especially living in Baltimore, we are very reproach-filled people. And we reproach others, and they reproach us. And then there's the deal of feeling reproached on behalf of somebody else. And reproach is not acceptable behavior. So we'll get through some of this, and we're going to pray at the end, because I think we all need prayer on this one. Okay, as I have up here, there's several words that they use in the Old Testament. This is kerpal, and it's the basis of reproach. And it also means all kinds of stuff like shame and rebuke, and it means a lot. It's a loaded thing. And then you get into the Greek in the New Testament, and it's oniidos. Don't ask me to say that again, okay? And there's several forms of that. No. Oniidos. Where's Amalia when I need her?
Yeah, really.
And sometimes you type in pronunciation, and you go blah blah blah. I'm like, what did they just say? I don't know what they just said. So here we are. There's another Greek word, theatron, and that might mean something to some of us once I get into what I'm going to talk about with this. So the deal is, we have all kinds of different reproach and thoughts of what reproach is. Today's definition, when we look at in Merriam-Webster dictionary, it's simply like a mild expression of disapproval, or maybe disappointment in something you did or something somebody else did or did not. And it's just mild. But back in God's day, it wasn't quite like that. Or maybe he started out with a prophet who would chide him a little bit. And then after a while you have Jeremiah, who's he's getting into it. And you've got all these different prophets calling down fire on their own nation because of their sin. So it can be a gentle rebuke or a chide. It's something that PB will do. On Tuesday night especially, he'll chide us about something or someone. He has to say, look, he has to give them a mild reproach. He could be sitting there going, and you're doing this and you're doing that and this is terrible and my God, you need to be on the floor and repenting to this person. He doesn't really do that to us. He tells us what's wrong, and he tells us that this is not good. And he might tell us this is witchcraft or whatever. But he's pretty gentle, really. Because when we look at Old Testament prophets, they're calling down fire, their nation is being restored, or the heathen are allowing to be restoring them, destroying, and things aren't good. So, but then there's the other side of reproach is there's the demonic spirit side, which goes way beyond whatever God might be like. Okay, you've been bad, we're going to discipline you. We are going to chide you. We're going to have a serious conversation. But with a spirit that gets in us of reproach, it's taken to many more levels. And it's not kind. And it's not Christ-like. So we're going to talk about that, but we also need to know that because we've been doing marine spirits, it is often tied up with marine spirits. And I think in particular what's coming to my mind is the spirit of Medusa. Because of her past hurts, she carries a reproach from men because she was raped. Let's go into this just a little bit more. She is reportedly, possibly, whether it was a real story or a myth, a legend, I kind of bite into that little bit of an apple where a lot of these gods and goddesses were really on the earth and did these things because they were fallen angels. They had sex with women. You have the Nephilim. And God had to wipe them all off the face of the earth. Some of these buggers were immortal, as are, the fallen angels. So it might sound kind of crazy, but a lot of people that, study demonology say, well, it's, this type of action seems like it ties into this Greek stuff, this Roman stuff, this Norse stuff, all these myths, their legends, people down in Brazil, all over the world, there was tales of things that came from the sky, angels or beings. And if you read your Bible and you go, wow, there was stuff coming out of the sky. There's these fallen angels. I saw them falling from heaven. So where did they go? Well, they landed here. But something stayed and went into the waters, and something stayed up in the waters of the heavens. So, that's something I have to teach another class on, is the Queen of Heaven. Queen of Heaven, Queen of the Seas, the oceans, and stuff like that. I haven't gotten there yet because I need to read some books. I need to talk to some people. I need to get it straight. And what I like is finding a good, really super know-it-all African person and saying, what does your country believe? What have you experienced there? Because we're over here and we have all kind of junk happening. We don't know why it's happening. We don't know who. So we pray amiss because we're not praying specifically. And then we get that specific prayer going on and somebody starts burping and crawling on the floor like a snake. And, it's just kind of crazy. But then we get to seeing some serious deliverance that maybe makes more reality of deliverance for that person than praying kind of like all the symptoms around it, but not by its title. Jesus has titles, so do spirits. They often go by their functions, but a lot of them, they have real names. Like me or you, they want to be called this, they want to be called that. Sometimes once in a blue moon, we get one that says, I'm not leaving until you get my real name. And then Pastor Lane will say, okay, Holy Spirit, God, you know his name. And it makes them so mad. So let's get back to this, because I can really go off kilter. Okay. Sometimes when we're not listening, the Holy Spirit will reproach us, going from gently to a bit of a cutting tone. It'll be like, we're getting serious about this now. Kim's getting the serious stuff going on. But we got to always make sure when we deliver a word that it's done in love and with kindness and with mercy, and it looking towards the reparation. God doesn't want to bring judgment. He's a loving God. We're living in New Testament times where, yes, we need to be told, but there needs to be kindness and his mercy, his heart behind a word. So let's look at Psalm 15. It asks a question first. It says, Lord, who shall abide in your tabernacle? Who shall dwell in your holy hill? And then it gives the answer. He that walks uprightly, works righteousness, not self-righteousness, works righteousness, and speaks the truth in his heart. And here this is. Verse 3 is the kicker. He that backbites not with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor takes up, ding, 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 reproach against his neighbor. Now I know you're going to say, neighbor, what's your neighbor? Well, remember Jesus. He looked around, he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Do thy prophets no harm. It's kind of echoed in these words. The neighbors, anyone that's around you, anyone that's in your sphere of influence, any person that you touch some way, people that's in your neighborhood, the people that when you walking into the bank, you're standing at the ATM, they're your neighbors right there. Because guess what? If all of a sudden you're having a heart attack and you fall on the ground, you're going to want their help, right? Someone's about to beat you up, you're crying, everybody's all of a sudden your friends because they can help you. So we look at the Samaritan, he was reproached greatly in the land of Israel, held at great reproach. But he's the one that helped a fellow Israelite when all kind of great people from Israel would walk by. They ain't going to be busy about their business of helping someone laying there on the ground. They're not going to do it. They don't have the time. And you're like, it's this type of person. I'm not going to care about them. We're supposed to regard every single person we meet as a neighbor. And everybody at our workplace and everybody that mocks us and scorns us, those are your neighbors. Those are your neighbors. They are within the family of God because he created them. It doesn't matter one bit if they're Muslim, it doesn't matter what island they're from or what continent they're from. If they've lived on Antarctic and been isolated, if they lived up there in igloos, it doesn't matter your skin tone, your gender, nothing matters. You're a creation of God, and God is well pleased with his creation. He created it and said you are good, and he loves you. We're supposed to, keep this in your brain, love the sinner. Love that sinner, but hate the sin. And you got to separate those things. You got to really take your sword out and separate that. Because when you don't, when you can't do that, you might get a spirit of reproach upon you. In Hebrew, kirpah means not what Merriam-Webster said, like a mild rebuke, but to rebuke sharply, disgrace you. There's insolence, slurs, abusive language and treatment. You might be done up contumely, which means it's like words of such harshness is beating you up. The words are whipping you. They're slapping you. The theatron of Greek, Rick Renner. If you want to know what certain words mean, you look up Rick Renner on YouTube, or he's got a few books. Greek is his main thing that he can do, and you will learn a ton. So theatron means a theater. And sometimes we do something and we're brought onto the stage for the entire world to see. And you're made the laughing stock, the gazing stock. And it's not fun. You're literally pulled onto the stage in front of people, maybe at the office. You're put on stage for people to mock, to be scrutinized with a microscope over every little thing that you do. Has anybody here ever felt like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's meant to bring public shame. You're scorned for your faith sometimes. Good morning, Sister Gita.
Morning. Sorry.
You're not.
Tried to get here on time.
If you need to eat, go grab some stuff. There's coffee in the back. You're studied, you're criticized, and it's all for the purpose of being sneered upon, scorned and mocked and humiliated. That is when you are now a spectacle and you're a theatron. And it's not to bring glory or honor or respect. It's all for the bad. And that's what reproach is really about, when it's a spirit of reproach working against you in your life. So you see, reproach can be, say I saw, we won't pick on anybody. I just saw an alien and he was doing such and such, okay? That darn tootin' little alien, how could he do this? And I go and I tell you, that alien, he was doing this. This alien was doing that. Do you believe it? And you start gossiping and slandering and whispering, and you're like, we're going to get that alien back. We're going to do something back to him. We're going to get some revenge. Put this into terms with things that you've had happen to you, or things that we've seen on the television. And you take up a reproach. This happened to me just yesterday. I started really taking up a reproach. They had on the TV, on the news, about a woman who was slain up in Aberdeen. She was strangled and raped after she was dead, and her mother could hear it happening on the phone. And she couldn't help her. And she had to listen to that. And, they're showing a picture of the man that did it, and I'm like, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I'm like getting so upset. This is indirect. This is an indirect reproach. I'm mad at this person. He did not personally hurt me. He didn't hurt anybody I know. He did hurt a fellow creature in Christ. However, I find that things like that emotionally rile me up. And what do we do when one of our brothers down there, was it Georgia or Tennessee, somewhere, he was killed by the police? Yeah. And it riles you up. And you get mad at those cops. You get mad at the law that's around you. You get mad at anything then. And there's rioting and burnings, and people just go off because there's some there's righteousness. We shouldn't tolerate this type of attitudes, the behavior that was done. No one should be beaten up by the cops. We don't know why it happened, what they're thinking. We all have different perspectives. And since we don't know their perspectives, we don't know what was going through their head that brought on and what spirit was working in. They're not going to look and say, well, we just think that spirit of rage popped up, and this happened. They don't see that those monkeys jumping on the police officers. We don't know. But when we don't have their perspective, and when we have departed from God, it causes us to depart from God and revile other people and vilify other people who somehow overtaken by their emotions probably would never have done that. But Satan sets them up. He sets them up. So there you are now. You're a gazing stock for the whole TV world to see. It's going across the nation. It's going up into Canada and Mexico. It's going across in the USSR and Europe. And they go, wow, those people over there are crazy. We go back to, I can't remember his name. He was beaten up and killed in Baltimore. Who was that? Freddie Gray. And this happens all the time. And it shouldn't ever happen, but people are being killed, they're being murdered, they're being raped. Look at Will Smith. He got his danders up over what was said about his wife. and everybody jumped on him, and he was really in the theatron of it all. He was vilified this way and that way and this way. And I'm the weirdo that takes up for everybody. I'm like, but they said this it was about his wife. He's defending his wife. And everybody's looking at me like, but he just went out there and punched that guy. And I'm like, I think he should have been punched. And I'm like, that's me. That's the real me. I'm not as nice as you think I am. I'm like, you just said trash about his wife, and because I'm a very emotional person. And even though Will should not have done what he did, nobody said, but what you did wasn't kind either. There was, it brought it on. He stirred up the bee's nest. And then I'm sitting there watching this on TV, and I'm getting like, where's justice? Both of them should be in trouble, right?
Right.
I thought it was right, but I'm like, I just want to slap him myself. And that's me, because I am a very highly emotional person, because I've gone through a lot, and I have not been totally healed, where I can sit there and say, tut tut, it looks like rain. Oh my, that's a Pooh Bear quote. And you just say, tut tut, it looks like rain. But I'm the person that's like, that person needs to be put down, and you can get into that reproach yourself out of a little sense of your own emotions working against you. I was like in shock yesterday when they showed the mom and her crying. And of course it's meant to work on your emotions.
Right.
But then you have to think, well, that young man that did that, he's in a gang. He does not know right from wrong. He's been raised probably in a bad situation. The environment has everything to do with it.
Yeah.
And his mom's thinking, I knew this was going to happen. This is my son. Don't put my son in the jail. Don't do this. Don't do that. Please. She's pleading for his life. Or maybe it's old grandma. Maybe mom is dead. I don't know the family situation. She could have been on drugs and dead. Maybe she's on drugs and has no idea of even what's happened. We're not in their shoes. We're not in their shoes. We don't know another person's life that brought them to doing what they've done. And it is not for us to judge. And it is not for us to revile. We're supposed to love our neighbors, who include that young man that killed that lady. He is our neighbor in Jesus. He is a creation, and God's waiting for him. Maybe jail's the best thing, and a preacher can get to him, and he might come out of there preaching the good news of the gospel and delivering people of anger and rage and the spirit of the gang. And that's what we got to look at, is they're not in a good way, but how much are we with Jesus? I'm putting myself out there as an example, filled with the Holy Ghost a lot of times, speaking in tongues, prophesy to the church, but all of a sudden I want to smack somebody. You see it on TV, like, this is horrible. I'm just being real. We are people. It's better. Don't show me, oh, I'm better than thou, Don't show me that. I know what we're all like behind closed doors. Or you hear something while you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you get mad, and boom, you're going to cut somebody off because you just got mad at this guy over here. It happens all the time. We are not really yet beyond reproach. It is a goal. It's a very real goal. And it's hard to get to that goal. And we have to have Bible. We need to look. So here it says in verse 3 of Psalm 15, that last bit, nor takes up a reproach against his neighbor. Reproach can be on another person's part. It can be that a nation is reproached. Israel was reproached by Egypt. A lot of times there's just social groups. Facebook. I was on Perry Hall Neighbors, and they reproach people on there. They will sit there and say, this person gives a bad review on a restaurant and says, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. And then somebody gets on there and calls this person a crybaby. I'm like, he's telling you to say, maybe keep away from there for a while or watch your step. Just go in with grace and goodness because it might not turn out so well. Then another time they were down in the McDonald's. And somebody said, well, they're only getting paid $15 an hour. What do you expect? I'm like, if I was paid $15 an hour, I would be, thank you, Jesus. Because it's McDonald's. I worked at Roy Rogers. I was the French fry girl and the milkshake girl. And all I remember was people coming like, is that drink fresh enough? I'm like, what do you mean? We just poured it out for you. How do we know that ice hasn't been sitting there for ages? I don't know how long it's been in the container of the ice machine. I don't know, but it's not exposed to the air. I want a fresh drink. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, And it was like, I don't know how to deal with this because they're reproaching me simply because they didn't see me make that drink right in front of their eyes. And we do like that. But sometimes if it's lunchtime, you're going to have 50, 80 people coming in and standing in line and going through the mall out with their drinks and their french fries and whatever. Sometimes you just got to say, we got to load up for a little bit. We do that here at church. We pre-make the drinks sometimes, don't we, Sister Gita? All I can say is don't put the ice in until really late so it doesn't melt and taste watery. We've had a little bit of issues with that because we don't have refrigerators to take care of all that soda. But guess what? We're not going to have soda here anymore because if we get new carpet, there best not be one drop of soda. I've already been warned about that, and I told Pastor, well, for your party, we served water.
Water bottle.
And only water. It's like, okay. Okay. He couldn't yell at me. Like, that's all you're ever going to get out of me. Because people they would take it from our fellowship hall that we had, and the little kids would bring their juice boxes out and run up and down the hall, not knowing that juice is really stainable. And we go out and I'd be out there scrubbing with a brush for a half an hour. Like, I think I'm wearing holes in the carpet. But there's all kind of reasons why you get reproached or why we reproach others. Sometimes we are reproached or we reproach someone else directly or indirectly. It's all kinds of arrows going back and forth. So I want you to know that we're not beyond reproach. We're on our way to it. We might have to enter and step into heaven on that holy, white, steaming, I know there's going to be that glory and maybe some ice, the smoke from the, you know what I'm saying? And we're going, wow. And then you're going to feel that difference in you. We want that here on this earth. It's, one of the meanings is expressing in some way displeasure or disapproval for blameworthy conduct or such kind that needs some kind of amendment. But it can become a fiery reproach, often through another human or God, his prophet, a counselor, and is there to expose sin so that we can go and become right with the Lord and right with our fellow humans. But then, this is a spirit too, and it causes us to overdo and overreact and harbor it. Anger, we are told, takes up residence. It's somewhere in the New Testament. I'm not the person that can remember, even as a teacher, I cannot remember all these, but anger takes up residence. You can take it up in your car. Maybe you're always yelling at people in your car. I'm going to tell my boss this, right? I'm going to say this to him when I see him next. And you get an attitude going on. Because sometimes, we regard it as a safe place to sound off and let go of our steam, but it can also draw in a spirit of anger. So I'm going to give you an instance in my house. My son has just started seeing or letting me know that he saw spirits. And I would realize that, here we have a brand new house. My husband has built us a house with his own bare hands. Piece of wood by piece of wood, screw by screw, nail by nail, all of that. And it took him a long time. And it was on my mom's property, so we didn't have to pay for property. But, I would go in my cute little kitchen and think, all this stuff it would make me mad. Things would be just getting on my last nerve. So I started I gotta pray about this. And I was just learning about what to do with devils. I'm I think there's something in here. Because I'm fine until I walk into the kitchen. And here we go. All of a sudden, you got your blood starting to boil. I'm I wasn't even mad at him before. What's going on? So it's got to be a spirit. So I went and I prayed. I'm okay, I'm going to get out of the kitchen because it's madness in there. And then I go in my bathroom. And I pray. I'm I think I feel a little bit better. I bound it. I didn't know about casting it out. I never heard of that really. It's in the Bible for Jesus to do, but I didn't know that we did this. So this is 2006, 5, something like that. And, I'd read all kinds of books, and binding demons and this and that and casting out, but I hadn't really put it in my own practice. I need to bind a sucker. So I come out of the bathroom, and a little while later, my son goes in, and he does a U-turn, comes back out. He goes, I can't go in there. I'm what do you mean you can't go in the bathroom? He goes, there's a demon in there. I'm what? He goes, yeah. It says, and anger is written on his forehead. I'm oh boy. I'm I don't know what to do with it. I'm how do you know? I'm thinking, did I pray so loud that he could hear me and he's making up stuff to freak me out? No, he saw it and he says, well, it's in hot white holy handcuffs. Up here. White here on big leather type handcuffs or maybe metal. And it says he's hanging on the wall. I'm oh boy, now what do I do? He says, well, I can't go. I'm honey, we got a bathroom upstairs. He's well, what are you going to do about it? I don't know what to do about it. And I hadn't been to this church yet, or I would have been phoning the secretary. Vicki, what do I do about this? I need to talk to the pastor. But I didn't know Vicki Milan, and I didn't know Pastor Blaine. So every once in a while I said, Daniel, take a peek in there. And I ain't going in there. I'm no, I ain't going in there either then. So the next day he gets up and he says, it's gone. I'm it's gone? He goes, it's not in there. I'm do you see it anywhere else? And he goes, I thought, well, maybe the binding only takes place for a certain length of time, maybe. And then it's freed again because I didn't cast it out. I didn't know to cast it out. Otherwise, my son could have went to the bathroom. And make sure it ain't the one upstairs. But you see, anger takes up residence. And when you have a spirit of reproach, you can be assured. If you're working with that, if it's working against you, or it's working through you towards another person to speak against them, you can be sure you have something living somewhere. It's hiding. It might be holding hands with you, put it that way. You go down the hall to work and check in and clock in. It might be holding hands with you. It might be sitting there with its arms draped around your shoulders, or a little bugger sitting on top of your head. Okay? But usually they're kind of bigger because it's got a lot of work to do. Let's look some more. Just remember, words are spirit. So whatever is created, it might be creating good, it might be creating evil. But words of reproach create. And I have news for you. Just like Pee Wee Herman used to say, whatever bounces off of you is going to come back on me. Or whatever bounces off of me is going to come back on you. A lot of you people don't remember Pee Wee Herman. But I'd be like, yeah, Marie's like, yeah. He was crazy. And he would act like a little kid, and he was cute, and he was weird. Okay, he was really weird. But some of the stuff that he said did make sense. That, he was like, these kids on the show would like be saying stupid stuff to him, and he'd be like, whatever you say to me is going to bounce back on you. It's the law of the spirit. What you sow, you're going to reap. So if you are a reproachful person, you keep wondering why your life gets worse and worse sometimes. Because your thoughts, you don't even have to say it. If it's in the depths of your heart, maybe that little cavern in the heart that it doesn't exactly have the glory of God in there yet. Maybe a cavern in your heart where there's a lot of triggers because people have treated you like this before, and now they're treating your friend like this. And you want to stand up for them and protect them, and you're offended for your friend. You're offended for your son or your daughter, your husband, your mom, people of our church, people in your own personal sphere. Things that we see in the television, hear about on Twitter. That's the one thing. I mean, I like Trump, but he's offensive. He says things that hurt a lot of people's feelings. And I'm sorry, we're not supposed to be doing those type of things, president or not. It is not good in the sight of the Lord. Whether he was chosen by the Lord God Almighty. And sometimes certain things do need to be said. But vilifying everything. For myself, it was biting my emotions. We're like, this is enough. There has to be a cutoff point where you can show you are a Christian. And that goes for all of us. We need to put on the persona of Jesus Christ. There's going to be vilification sometimes from God against us when we have done things that are wrong. He will start telling us where we are wrong, where that is not a good. He'll get somebody else to do it for him. He might get your pastor. He might get somebody with a big mouth in the church to just be his messenger, his mailman, and say, you're not supposed to be doing that, Sister So-and-so. I saw you and I heard you, and that is not kind. And other times, other people join up with them, and now you have a whole gang of people or a little clique. Churches should not be cliquey. There's friends groups, but we shouldn't be saying that's a clique and we're not really invited in, because the body of Christ is one body. And sure, maybe some arms hang out with other arms, the doers, and they might get to saying and doing things and hanging and knowing each other well. Howdy do, sir.
Howdy do too.
It's Pastor
yeah,
Blaine.
one here.
Howdy.
You fixed the
Oh.
SIP, so you should be warmer in here.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It did feel warmer in here
Good
even
day
when
for
I
that.
first came in.
Oh, good. I'm glad
Yeah.
you noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's weird. I'm like, I had to check the temperature, and it was like, well, it was 60, but it wasn't in the 50s where you're like, you gotta need your coat on constantly as it warms up. So thank
One of those
you.
projects just took me a little time to get to, but
Yeah.
we don't want you guys freezing.
Especially
Thank
today.
you.
Especially today.
Thank you. Have a good one. He
Don't mind it
works
in the summer.
all over this place. He works up in the ceilings. I've seen him standing on like beams above the ceilings. I'm like, please God, don't let him fall. Do not let him fall. I mean, it's precarious what he will do for this place. There ain't nothing he won't do. And I've seen him like, I need the light bulb changed up there all along the side. These light bulbs they're way up high. He has to get a cherry picker up and down just to change the light bulbs. And when he's in the cherry picker, he was out there changing the light bulbs in the parking lot. I'm like, I can't look at you. It's up too high. He goes, hey down there. I'm like, God, I can't look up at you. He does it all. Electronics, plumbing. He helps with flooring. He'll do anything. He paints. He does it all.
God
He's a
bless him.
one-man band. And sometimes, and he says, work doesn't get done because it's just him. Now look at this. It says you can send reproach towards another person. They're in the wrong. You are involved directly in that event, and it exposes or reveals a wrongful doing. Okay? A gentle, kind-hearted, meek approach to giving a word of reproach can guide that other person into recognizing their sin. Kind, meek, humble to them. We don't know how we just ticked them off. We don't know. Like, I look at myself sometimes when I'm like walking by the mirror in my hallway, and I look at my face and I'm like, that's not a good look, I'm not meaning it, but I'm like, why do I look like that? I'm like, I look like a nut. Or people are trying to read our faces and they get the whole wrong idea. We're thinking of what Aunt Betty just said to us. Aunt Betty just said, your kid's got a really big nose. You just had your baby and Aunt Betty comes along and says, so you're sitting there, that stupid Aunt Betty. I'm going to slap her face off. I'm going to make her nose bigger. But Aunt Betty, you don't know, couldn't have kids and would love to have a kid with a big nose. And so she's going to say something reviling to you because she's jealous. She never had a boy, and you got a boy. See what I mean? Or she's just jealous that you're in a house and you're not living in a crummy place. And she's got to go home after seeing her baby with a big nose to her little dump of an apartment, and it's all she can afford because she never got to go to college, and you did. And you have a sumptuous job, and your husband does too, and you've got a great place, and she's just going to find something to say and reproach you about. And every time you get together, she's going to say something rude because she's jealous, and she's hurting inside because she don't got what you got. You see what I'm saying? We don't know what the wheels and the gears in our heads or in their heads are doing. It's hard enough for us to figure out how the gears are working, why so-and-so makes us upset. Why is it making us, we can't always sit there and go for 10 years to a psychologist or a counselor. We have to be here in this church able to figure out what this is and ask God. And if you ask him enough and be patient, he will show you. He will show you. And sometimes there will be a prophet type person who can speak into your life, but we're not to be dependent on them. We're to be dependent on him. He is our source of information. The Holy Ghost can reveal all things because he's the one that knows all things. So, kind-hearted responses are necessary if we're going to win that person over, or to just on our part understand where they're coming from. They might have heard something about you, and they're doing an indirect jab at you because they thought you did this to such and such a person. Reproach can just run rampant. And when we're all here together night after night and day after day, or meet with this group or that group, reproach can run rampant. One person gets hurt and they tell another person who tells the other person. In the meantime, the person that hurt you, you didn't realize that you just said something that ticked them off and jumped their gun on you and tagged them emotionally. And so, they said something to you because you just got them banders up and you didn't know that you were doing that to them. Yes,
Is
Brent?
gossip the same as reproach, or is it like an evil?
It is one of the symptoms of reproach. It is not necessarily the only sort of thing that it tags into. I'm going to give you one of my big famous lists of, it's like this and this and this and this. Does this ping anybody? And we will pray after a while. I'm just trying to make you see that it isn't just that you're always the only one reproached, but sometimes subconsciously or unconsciously we're doing something that's triggering somebody else. And so because of that, they start talking smack about you. And then you get an attitude because you just heard what they are doing, and you don't really realize the root source. That inside of us and inside of any person out there, there are unhealed little girls and boys, people that were shamed or mocked or scorned, reproached harshly. And reproach is about supposedly to help us see where we need to get ourselves together a little bit better and to maybe quit a certain sin. Like if I seen some guy out there and he just was not just coming out of a bar, he can come out of a bar, but staggering. Say this man or woman is staggering. Maybe they didn't mean to drink that extra drink, right? Is that really a sin? They had a drink with their friends, they had some pizza, but that last drink, they put a little bit too much in there, and now they're like, woo, because I don't usually, this actually happened to me. I'm like, Jim, hold on to me. That drink is hitting me now. I rarely drink. But if I do drink, and that's my son made wine, and it tasted good. My whole family, they make alcoholic beverages. And one of the things, my son's going to make wine soon, and it's been in my family for generations. They are wine makers. And but I stood up to go back into our cabin because we're at our picnic table, and the coyotes are howling, and there's and it's just a beautiful starry night. And I'm like, I think that coyote is getting a little closer than I want. We need to go get that great big flashlight, the one that you can spin around the whole property and you can see 100 feet away, right? So I'm going to go in there and get that. And I get up, I've had this much of a glass of wine, and it hit me. I'm like, Jim, the world is whirling around. I'm like, oh my gosh. See, now that's not something to be reproached over. But if I had been drinking the whole bottle or two, that's a reason to reproach me, right? If you're just guzzling it down, and some people, it doesn't matter. They can drink it. They're used to it. It is their lifestyle. You go to Germany, they're going to drink beer all day long. They're not going to get drunk off of it. It's their life, because that's how they drink that instead of the water. I don't know if it's still the same, but it was when my great-grandparents were growing up. Now, sometimes there's attitudes that are direct, face-to-face, or you hurt and you affront and you begin to sin. So we're going to be talking about that type of sin. There's backbiting. You're talking behind people's backs, backstabbing, biting words, harmful, harsh attitudes to others aloud, around you, to get them on your team about that, and about the shamed one, and the shamed one isn't present, and sometimes that person is present, and you start upbraiding them. They just happen to walk by, and you're going to start it in front of a group of people, or they started against you in front of a group of people, or maybe it's just like you're getting handpicked, 2 people here and you, and they got you in the back closet at work, and they're going to ream you. And you're like, but none of this is true. Oh, I heard this, and this person said that. We all know what you're like. And you're facing reproach. And it's hidden. You might rag on them. You might seek because of what is in your heart about that person. And it might be a sin for real, or just something that your psyche is making up in you, and the demons are talking to you to get you mad at a person that should be your friend. Let's not do that no more, okay? It's like making me look. It could be from anywhere, though. You might even start praying revenge prayers. You ever had somebody being like that? We need to, yeah. They pray for vengeance and revenge. Even though the Bible says vengeance is mine, right? It might be a place where it's just supper time. is a place where you get mocked and scorned by your brother, your sister, or your dad has to come in and tell you everything that you did wrong today and didn't do. And embarrasses you in front of everybody else. And maybe there's a favorite brother over there that gets away with everything, and they did not feed the cows. They did not get up and muck the horse barns like you did, but they kind of helped mom eat the pancakes. But they're the favorite, and you're the one that gets yelled at all the time. And your father holds a reproach against you. Why? Because his father held a reproach against him. And it's generational, going down the lines. You might be in your prayer closet or with your friends, a little social group, speaking and thinking while you're driving, taking the bus, and these thoughts come flying in your head. Some person did this. Or, did you see that on their face? I bet they're thinking this and that. And you make up a whole scenario. You might be a person that gets like some visions in your head or words coming in your ear, and you think Sister So-and-so did say this about you. Or it twists, Leviathan twists words around, and it will say, take your words that you're meaning for their good intent and their good influence, and they're taking it as, all you do is put me down. You're saying this and that, and like, that's not what I said. This has happened to me. I can physically see the demon whirling around next to their ear, and my words weren't going in their ear. They were going in that funneling into this whirlwind, and it twists and it distorts, and usually because of pride in that person, pridefulness, it begins to have reproach in that person. The twisting demon makes it say this. It means this to you. You get the idea in your head, but that is what this demon's really, it's not what the demon's, sorry. This is in my head after that thing's whirling around. This is what they're really saying to me. This is what they really mean. I know what they mean. You mean this. And then off they go in a tantrum against you. And trying to get immediately a group against you. Or they might go off and sulk for a couple of months. And you can't have a church family that's sulking or isolating. It doesn't mean that we weren't, maybe we did mean a little something, but that spirit of reproach is amping it up to be a full-blown shout at you, and it wasn't like that at all. Maybe you're trying to give that humble, meek tip to them, like, maybe we could do this instead, or maybe, when this kind of behavior is happening, and I'm finding that there's gossip, and that person starts exploding. We got to be really careful with our words, that we're not trying to put fiery darts into their hearts, because if you have a fiery dart in you, they're going to reap one for themselves from someone else. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So does the spirit of reproach operate with the spirit of offense?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Sure does.
Okay.
It makes offense even worse. Because there's being offended, but reproach, bitterness, offense, resentment, they're the main characters, and they all bind together. And I think honestly that it isn't really just offense as being the top dog. I think it is reproach. Reproach, bluntly, is mentioned about 70 some times in the Bible, and that's where it's not just saying, say shame. There is a lot of shame. Hold on. A shame is mentioned in the Bible, and vile, there's all kinds of words that could have been used in that place, but it's all a part, a portion. So I'm going to give you a list of what it looks like so that you can identify it when you're up against it, or maybe you have a habit, a pattern, a cycle of it. And you're like, I just don't know why I keep saying these things. Or I go into work and I get mad and then I'm cussing everybody out. And it isn't just a spirit of anger. Say you get to drive all day and all you're doing is thinking about this person or this situation, how you were harmed. And you can't get it out of your head. Because Hydra, that demon of the Lord, Hydra is the Lord of cycles and patterns, of times and seasons. Okay? We discussed them last time. If you missed it, it's on YouTube. But it keeps bringing things around to your attention to work your emotions up, to get you to being reacting about things. It wants you mad at everybody. It does not want this family in here unified. It does not want this church unified. You know, we talk about unification and everyone in harmony because that's how the day of Pentecost was before the Holy Spirit blew in. But if you have people holding one another in reproach, or certain groups of people where you haven't been let into their circle, and you're like, wow, look at these friends. They're talking to each other and they're all happy. And I seen that one time and I really said that to God. I said, why can't I have a group of friends like that? And for one thing, he said, because you're a prophetess. And I'm like, a lot of times prophetic people don't have a lot of friends around them. You got to really work at it. You got to know who's for you and who's going to get insulted by your prophecies. It's kind of funny. But sometimes you have to really learn how to hear God for yourself, never depend on another person, and know when it's God and know when it is not God. Because there's plenty of Kundalini spirits, deception spirits that want to speak into you that are not prophetic. It's not God's voice, but it sounds very much like it. You have to be in God's presence to know the difference. Psalm 15 says, do not take up reproach against your neighbor, but instead, you're the one that's getting hurt. You get on their case. A tit for tat. Sowing and reaping. Jesus says, who is my neighbor? Luke's 10 is about, everyone. No matter their beliefs, no matter their culture, no matter how they dress. If you're mad at me because I got blue hair, oh well. It's kind of fun. Love thy neighbors. Bless those who curse you. Medusa couldn't pull that off. Let me talk for a few minutes about Medusa, okay? And why she's being mixed in to our little program here today. She's linked up with reproach and offense. Medusa was already a marine spirit mortal. She was mortal. Her sisters in the tale were gorgons, but she was the beautiful one, okay? And it's reported that perhaps she was a priestess in the temple of Athena, or else an ardent worshiper of Athena. This is Greece. Here we go, okay? She's beautiful, and Poseidon sees her. And some people say, well, maybe it was consensual sex. I don't think so. You know why? Athena was a virgin goddess. That would have been like, Medusa would be like, you gotta be kidding me. Or she might be, come meet ya, But she would not have done this in the temple. Most people would not do something like that. Not in the presence of a virgin goddess. So that is why they believe that Poseidon raped this woman. And because Poseidon is an older god than Athena, she could not bring a reproach against Poseidon, Athena herself. So because she was mad about what happened in her temple, she goes and says, the fall guy, if you will, is going to be Medusa then. And she turns her into a gorgon that has a face that's hideous. Her beautiful locks of hair. Just think of, when you've gone and you've gotten your dreads on, you've gotten your curls in, you've gotten you're all whoop-de-dooed up at the salon, or you've got your everything on, and you're looking great. And all of these things are now snakes. They're venomous and they're hissing at everyone that comes close to you. But you walk out of there being cursed, and you don't even know how ugly you are, and everybody's screaming and running, and people that look at you are falling over dead. You can't have a boyfriend that way. You can't have a child that way, because anything that her eyes laid on would die. You can't even say, well, how about we just put a mask over our head? That's pretty hard. But with it came that spirit of reproach, the bitterness of, let's think of this now with a little bit of compassion, okay, before we Medusa bash. How about you're in church and you've said some things with the pastor? Say we won't use it as this church. We'll just say the last church you were at, okay? Or somewhere in your younger days, or just a pretend church. And this pastor made a move on you. What if he made a move on you? You're a woman. Or you're a guy, and the pastor's wife just came up and touched you somewhere you shouldn't be touched. Right? It happens all the time, people. And you tell someone in the church, and like, that did not happen. You're the weirdo. You are thinking of doing that to him. You wanted this. It's your fault. And you're vilified. So here we have church situations. Say another, situation where somebody wants your position. Say you're a teacher and you want a position, and so somebody starts talking smack about you, and they get it into the pastor's ear, and now the pastor's thinking, wow, I thought this person was doing great. As far as I knew, they were doing great. Now he's mad. Now he's mad at you, and he's going to tell you something. And you're like, where did this come from? Well, sister so-and-so said this to me, and this one, they're all telling me how you were doing this. That's not true. And you've got 5 people against your own, and you could be lying. And you know that they're lying, and you thought that they were kind of okay friends. And now you have this situation in your church where, because why? Because that person wanted your position. And the only way they can think of is to knock you out of it. And the only way to knock you out of it is to knock you out of the pastor's good list and put you on his naughty list. Ooh, it happens. It's happened here in this church. It has happened. And the only thing that usually comes around is maybe Pastor Blaine gets the wind of it, or God speaks to him about it, or a prophetic person says, ho, ho, ho. And God says this and this and this, because God will always fight for his people. But it might be a few months. And that person that was vilified, they might even go, you know what, I'm not going to pretend that this is even happening. I'm going to write it off. I'm going to put it in the closet, lock it up, because I know these people have done this. But then there might be a conversation about such actions later on with the pastor, because this has been maybe a pattern in that other person's life. And maybe other people are keeping their mouth, the key is in the mouth, and they're like, I'm not going to bother the guy, or I'm not going to bother Sister Adriana. And then there's pattern after pattern after pattern, cycle after cycle, and finally a person it's happened to is like, I ain't afraid of telling him. I need some justice done, or I need this to be known, because if this is happening to me, who else has it happened to? And it's building up in the church, where these people are all like, not for you anymore. They're against you because they heard something. There was a dancer here before, and she had a whole big setup in her dance people that I was a horrible person. Like, I don't know, I've never even talked to her before. But, well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe she thinks I should be talking to her. And I was much quieter then. I was shyer. But, just because somebody doesn't talk to you, you don't go around and say smack about them. Just because they have a different set of friends or they're just an in and out person, it doesn't matter. We need to train our tongues and submit them to the Holy Ghost, because no man can tame it but by the Holy Ghost. So Athena took vengeance upon that illicit sex acts done in her temple. And she did not take up for her follower. There are times when our pastor may not know the truth at that moment and may not take up for us. And we have to be big boys and girls and say, this will eventually get straightened out. Nevertheless, Medusa, a dedicated, devoted parishioner. And sometimes people think they know us only because we are too quiet and nobody really knows the real us. And they think they can use us. Okay. So she was banished to an island, exiled, resenting men. I'm going to just say this. Medusa, in her reproach, does not have to be only inhabiting a woman. It's a spirit is a spirit is a spirit. There is nothing as a male or female. They may appear male or appear female, but we may very well have many men around us that have a Medusa type of spirit in them because they have had bad things happen to them. And so it enters in because in the heart, it starts whispering, well, that was wrong. And they also are crying in their hearts. And nothing is being done. Nothing's helping them. And when we're not helped and we're not healed and we can't see that there is life outside of being reproached or sending reproach back. Baltimore is an angry town. It's very angry. I've been into Boston, I've been down to Virginia, all up and down, and I've never met a place more angry than Baltimore. Everybody's reproaching one another.
Yes, you can feel it when you leave and come back, and even when there's a difference in West Baltimore and East Baltimore.
Yes. It's like you cross a line and you go, ooh, you feel the difference. You feel scared too. It's like it's not kind. It's like the kindness has left. Yes, Bob?
It's different principalities.
Yes, you're right. Yes. Yeah. So she was killed. Perseus did kill her in the tale, okay? He had to use a reflecting shield to be able to look at the reflection, hold it around a rock, see the reflection of where she was sitting at because she was sleeping beside a rock, and then be able to get there with that sword and cut her head off. And at first he was just trying to cut the snakes off of her head, okay? But he had to enlist his nephew, as the story goes, to when a snake would get cut off, to cauterize it, because Hydra's there to keep these demon snakes reappearing, regrowing. So when we are facing reproach, we have to cauterize those demons in us, fill in the gaps with Holy Ghost fire, so that we don't keep resurrecting that cycle, that pattern in us. Especially maybe there's a person we might have a whole list full of people that continually enjoy putting us down and bringing reproach to us in front of other people. It might just be something as they go and slide by you in line and they say something ignorant to you, and they have to do it every time they're around you. But we have to break that cycle and learn that is their demon. I must love that person. I do not love the sin that they're committing against me. You have to have that open blue sky in your mind and say, that is a person of Jesus that Satan is using, and I forbid myself to react to that type of offense, to that type of reproach. You really got to transform your mind and say, I will not succumb to this wickedness coming out of my mouth, stirring around in my heart and playing games with me in my mind. And you know who else is in us is all our little girl altars, our little boy altars that have had reproach over and over. It might just been mom on your case all your life. Daddy doing this, daddy doing that. Maybe there wasn't a parent in your life. Maybe sometimes some people are just raised by grandma who has to get up 4 a.m. to go to church. And then also every Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, also get up in the morning to go to work so you can eat and have a couple pairs of clothes that are new so that you can go to school and not be reproached by them kids at school for dressing funny. You know, you ever been that kid in school, and back in the hippie days, God forbid your pants are not dragging on the ground. If you had your pants up above your socks showing, or up above your ankles, you are going to be so teased. So horribly teased and scorned and taunted, ridiculed and humiliated. And there's kids coming in, sometimes even in this church, wearing clothing that maybe they're being teased here, but if they go out in their neighborhood, they are definitely going to be teased, you know? Let's get on with this. Let's get on with some more of this. We have to get into that Holy of Holies. We need to get there and let it overtake us. Because if not, you might be overtaken by reproach in your own actions towards others, or because of other people's reactions towards you. Or as I said, you seen it on TV and you just got blazing angry. It really made me upset. And then I looked at that poor boy's, you know, I mean, we want people to pay for what they've done. But at the same time, in criminology, they try to teach that, you know, rehabilitate people, bring them out of those situations, help them. And our prisons is not the place for rehabilitation. It is not going to do anything. My son did, his college did something about, what was it? When you get sent to like one of those training camps, you know, a boot camp. It's out in the wilderness, and you're going to have to do a whole lot of hard labor and learn to do this and learn to do that. It says all it does is hook you up with more people. So once you get out of there, you know who to buy the drugs from, a greater territory to sell them in, you know, so it's hooking you up instead of training you, and they're going, this really doesn't work. And when we drive up to my cabin, we go through the wilds in Pennsylvania, and we pass Kehana boot camp. And I'm like, oh, Lord God, help these boys in there. Help these men. Help them so that they're just not getting hooked up, so they can find out who has the biggest meth lab. Oh, I think the biggest meth lab was 2 doors down from my cabin. Yeah. Yes. We're thinking, man, there's coyotes, there's bears, there's really nice mountain people. I'd be hearing these people yelling, screaming down the creek. I can hear them yelling and this and that. And I'm like, I don't know, something just feel like somebody's being abused there. Like, but I'm not going to go down there because people up here have guns. Mm-hmm. You know, you're in the country and you're not welcome on people's property. They had cameras even at the edge of their property. I'm like, I've heard tales of 2 young men coming by us to go fishing on our stream, North Creek. They said, don't go down there. They'll hold a gun to your head. They will threaten to shoot you. You think they really are. And a guy ended up in jail because of it. Because he finally told his mom what was happening. Mom was like, I ain't having this. I am not having this. And they sent them out there and they arrested him. And they found out that he was sexually abusing his daughter. And he got 15 years in jail. Wow. But I think that the uncle's doing the same thing. However, let's get back to reproach. See, that makes me want to take up a reproach because I want to save them poor girls. And we have to put things into God's hands sometimes and say, look, there's a heart here that needs changing, or give that girl a way to open her mouth and get this guy sent off to jail too, you know? Things need to come out. Sins need to be exposed.
Yeah.
When you're overtaken by reproach in your actions or towards someone else, what else does it look like? There's situations that set you up, like self-righteousness. Your own sense of righteousness might end up becoming self-righteous because you're looking at this person and blaming them and saying, oh, no, you're bad, you're horrible, this and this and this and this and this. And maybe this only happened once. Or maybe they had a really rotten childhood and you don't even know it. Maybe they've just been having this type of stuff happen to them at work every day for the last 20 years. Okay? We don't know what's going on in someone else. We might be overly sensitive people. We might have our own sets of pain. If I hear somebody that's been raped, it sends pings through me still. Not completely healed, okay? Because I have had all of that. Your own fears and triggers can set you up to be overtaken by reproach. We might not really realize what we're doing. It just kind of likes to creep up on you. And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute. You know, when you finally get over that emotional attack from it, you go, that wasn't good, was it, God? Sorry, Jim, you just seem to get really mad. And he goes, I know, that kind of stuff gets you really riled up. I'm like, yes, it does. Like, sometimes, don't watch the news, Patty. And I was turned on at just the right time. Oh, my gracious. Things start getting way beyond what it should. And a root of bitterness shoots up like a vine, and it enwraps your mind all about with its fruits. Not just bitterness, feeling rage, wrath, and fury towards that other person. It isn't anymore just, hey, I got an art with you, and I just want to get over and make reparations. You don't even want reparation. You just want to get on that person's case. Over and over. Ooh, that's not Christian-like. You might be critical, judgmental, or condemning. Or this is what's coming back to you. Someone's always criticizing you and condemning you. They're always judging. Ooh. Hate-filled, deep-seated, boiling hate. Explosive fits of hate towards another person that keeps doing this to you. You know, they've sown it into you, but now it's festering. It's fruiting up with that reproach. You reproach someone, it's going to come back to you. And they might just go on la-di-da-di-da-di-da, laughing all about it. They don't realize God keeps a record of everything. Everything. Anger takes up residence in you. It's not just in your room. It's not just in your car. It's in you. Contemptuous speech. Foul, filthy, swearing language, because you can't find another word in the human language that beats people up as good as that foul word. Yeah. Bitterness, resentfulness, repulsion towards that perpetrator. But you don't realize now you are also a perpetrator of it. Ooh. Yeah. You were the victim, but now you're sending it back. Even if it's just in your thoughts, in your heart. Heart thoughts and brain thoughts are energy, and energy leaves us and it goes out to that person. You don't have to sit there and formally make up a prayer. You don't have to formally go and be, some people say, well, I didn't really say it. You're thinking it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Correct? Yeah. So that's not good. And we've all been there with different things. Some of us are so cool and calm as cucumbers, and you think they are beyond carrying reproach. But then one little thing ticks them off and you go, wow, they want me to help them reproach this person. I've been in that position a lot. They want me to help them reproach sister so-and-so because that person just can't get a good relationship going with them. And then I'm like, wow, this person, I can't believe this. And then you get to know the person on your own, and they're like, they're okay. It's the other person has an issue. And don't make their issues your issue. That is a key thing. You know, you're counseling someone, never make their issue your issue. The attitudes and behaviors go beyond aggravation or frustration or exasperation. And you might feel repelled being around that person that is doing this stuff to you. Or when you're around them, you are now the perpetrator. You're sending it back to them, and you just feel it in the air. It's like crackling in the air, this nonsense, because of the bad vibes. You know, bad vibes is a real thing. The vibrations of your voice will travel through the air. That's what a vibe is. The vibrations of your tongue, your mental faculties, brain waves can be measured. They are electric. They have frequencies. Gratitude is the highest frequency. It is above love, which is strange, but it is. Gratitude. We need to stay in an attitude of gratitude. And when someone verses us, just say, thank you for your very interesting opinion. Oh my. You feel personally damaged, even though you're just looking at a situation of reproach. We have to hide ourselves in Jesus. We have to live in his presence. We need to get the fruits in us to pop and not go rotten. Just hear that? Our fruits can go rotten, and that's exactly what Satan wants us to do. That was something my son did see. He said he would see people as trees. He hadn't read that part of the Bible yet, okay? But he said, I see people as trees. I'm like, okay, Lord, what is he doing? He says, up out of the heart is a tree. And he says, and then it blooms and it blossoms and there's fruit. He says, but I see in some people that there's rotten fruit, and it's fallen to the ground, and it's ick. And then they step in it, and it's on their feet. He was telling me one time that I guess that person was under some type of spiritual warfare, and this demon was coming up, and it was taking its sword and slicing that fruit. And as soon as it would either fall off and turn rotten, or remain on that tree that proceeds from the heart. And when you have rotten fruit, it makes lots of other fruit rotten too. You ever have that bad apple or one potato and you go, ew, and then you don't want to have to, so you got to wash everything off because that stuff is getting onto this stuff. And that's how rotten fruit is. Or you have a couple grapes and you're like, okay, we got to pick through the bunch because there's always maybe one or two that's maybe they went bad. It causes other things. It gives off gases and, antibodies that aren't good, viruses, fungus. We don't want to have a fungus heart. We want to be kind. We want to have good fruit that people can take from. You want to be like a person that you go home and you were with someone, you're like, I feel like I just ate some blueberry pie. Or like, dang, I want to just give out some cherry pie to people today. Should be our attitude coming into church. I want to give out good fruit to people, and they could go home and say, wow, we had a great conversation. And not just going home going, that just went bad. Now that's all you're going to think of all day long because Hydra's going to get in there and keep cycling through your mind, and then your heart's going to, and by nighttime you're like, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get that guy back. Oh my gosh. We don't want to be like that. But we're human. We don't always get to settle down right away. You defensively and angrily reproach that perpetrator, but now it does turn and twist and devour you. See what I'm saying? And it's often our own pridefulness or pride on the part for guarding someone else. Some of us are like the heroes or the rescue people, and we want to help someone so badly. Maybe you just meet them and you realize they're so messed up, and you're like, oh, you want to just take them in your arms and cuddle them up and help them with everything you got. But really and truly, I mean, it's nice to know you have someone on your side, but they have to learn to get strong enough to defend their own selves and even offer a good reproach back to someone without it becoming evil. When you can do that, you know you're really healed. So we have to hide ourselves. And the thing is, let me see, I can't find my little, here we go. Here is a list. The listy list. Recognizing demonic reproachful behavior. You say, Patty, I thought we already had some. Like, yeah, we had some. And then the snakes of Medusa will hiss at other people. I saw a person with Medusa head. It was a friend who turned into not a friend. And all of a sudden I'm seeing her. I'm like, I did not really know what I was seeing. It took me some thinking. Like her hair became snakes. She had a little bit curly type hair, but the snakes were like everywhere, coming out and hissing at me. And her face was all contorted. I'm like, wow, what just happened here? And every time I would see her for a few months, it was this way. And when you're trying to talk to this person, but the snakes want to bite you. I'm like, yeah, we're not in good rapport anymore. And she was blaming me. And well, the thing is, you're the one that took this up with the pastor, and it's coming back on you. This is your own doing, because she would go and get angry against the pastor all the time. But I saw those snakes, and her eyes would be like just glazed. Medusa has the eyes that turn to stone. But you know what? Once it gets mad at you, because you're not going to be frozen to stone and like staying like a statue, so your ministry becomes like stone. It ain't going nowhere. It's frozen. Nothing's happening with it, because Medusa has taken a reproach against you for whatever reason. Maybe it's just that one little silly thing. You had a pocketbook and she wanted it, okay? Because Medusa's jealousy and envy. Maybe you had something cute in your hair and they said a stupid thing to you about it, but they wanted it because you got it and they don't. Yes.
How do you know it's Medusa if you don't see it?
It's when
And
you
all
put
these
all this
signs.
stuff together, then you go, I think we have a Medusa. That's what I do with a lot of these marine spirits that I've been teaching about. I give you a whole list. I think people probably need to bring a pillow sometimes. They might go, just keep talking, but I'm tired. That's why it's called intensive Bible study. So this is to help you recognize that type of behavior, because most people don't see. There will be a whole discombobulated mess of this type of behavior. Rebukes. There is shaming. They love to shame you. They love to just put you down and make a mockery of you. They will blame you when you didn't even do anything about it. You were not even involved, but now they're blaming you. You're like, how did I get involved with this? Slander and gossip. Oh, yeah, they just love it. Their tongue loves it. But of course, they're just going to say, well, it's true. I'm just saying what's true. Or look at them. Don't you see this on them? They need help. They deride you. There is being made fun of. It goes beyond gentle teasing. when there's being sometimes teasing, Pastor Blaine will tease me about being short. Do I get hurt from that? No. You just laugh with certain types of teasing. It's not an affront. Theirs is an affront to you. It's trying to poke you down in the core of your soul. They want to do that. It is about tormenting someone else, holding one in derision, being the laughing stock in front of wherever you be, work, a little group at church, your family, a family gathering, and you're always the brunt of the jokes. And sometimes it's all in good measure, and other times it really, really isn't. It isn't. I seen it in one family where all the boys would gang up on the youngest. And you go, why are they ganging up on the youngest? Because he didn't have to work hard. He did virtually nothing. And all the other ones are like, how come this one's treated so differently than the rest of us? We're the workhorses pulling the weight. And you get to sit home and eat pancakes with Mommy Bear. You know? And didn't even have to go through schooling and this and that. And they take up something so it might be kind of mild compared to the extent that reproach can be. Admonishment. Some of these things are so close to each other, it's hard. Admonishment, if Pastor Blaine admonishes us, he might say, I see you and your heart isn't quite right in this area. And I'm just telling you this so you can work on it. Okay? That's an admonishment. Backbiting, backstabbing. Some will use a reproach, being reproached, as an emotional crutch, and then they're going to justify it when they vilify someone else. You get that?
Say that again.
Yeah. I'm like, that was all.
I couldn't write it down. Say it again.
Some use reproach when they are being reproached. They take it and use it as an emotional crutch. They bounce off of that crutch to then go and reproach you. They're working off of their emotions. They justify it to come back at you or to get to people that are around you so that you look stupid or rotten towards other people, and maybe take away your friends. Some people, they're mad because you have so-and-so for a friend, and they want that person as a friend. So they keep telling them, she or he does this or this or this. And it's just jealousy, and you have to look beyond it. But you also have to have wisdom. Love your neighbor as yourself, but have wisdom in, can this person make a good, safe friend that you can be yourself with? Or is this a person that just need a few barriers and boundaries? And when they won't even, they're a type of person that oversteps some boundaries all the time, trespasses against you, that's not a friend. So put them out on the back 40, as my mom would say. The chicken house is out on the back 40, so we don't smell it during the summertime. There's poopies in it. If there's a person that poopies all over you, put them out on the back 40. Put them out on the outer edge of your sphere. Sometimes they have to wonder why. Why aren't you letting me come around you? And that's when you give them that gentle reproach. That I love you, but there's a habit, and I don't feel comfortable with this habit. And I know we're friends, but this habit, it irks me, and it makes me feel bad towards you. And maybe we can talk about this so I can feel good around you. And good, and know what's going on. Why are you saying this? Because I thought we were friends. And we are friends, and I want to be friends, but that's on my not to-do list for the day, to have someone taunt me all the time over something or whatever it might be. Is anybody getting anything out of this yet? Everyone's like shaking their heads up and down, like a little quiet, like thoughtfulness, right? We get thoughtful over this kind of stuff because there's often fiery darts come at us. Fiery darts or blows of an axe. My son did see angels using machine guns, okay? He's seen not just the old weapons, but the new weapons. He's seen, them getting out a Luger and using it on the demons. I don't know what kind of bullets those buggers had, but he's like,
Silver.
yeah, exactly. And a little garlic.
What's a Luger?
It's a pistol. That's a very big, a German Luger. It's like a pistol that's heavy. So the thing is when we have those darts, sometimes we can just feel something in our heart or in our back. We might physically feel something. I've been through deliverances where, them deliverances. That's how I feel when I'm walking out there to get deliverance.
Well, yeah, but what's there? Nothing is notified.
All right.
I forgot to follow.
No looks of reproach at Pam, let me tell ya. None of that. Looks
Yeah, it
of
works on some things. But not on everything. Like I never got your reply to the text
Oh, yeah.
until like I forget how many hours. I'll look at my phone. My phone never made a noise.
Yeah. Ain't that something? Mine's like that too a lot of times. It'd be like all of a sudden Messenger loads me up 3 or 4 people and they're like days ago. I'm like, it wasn't there. Whatever. I guess the iCloud had a thunder boomer in it or something. Maybe it was snowing up there in that little iCloud. It's like fog and it just can't get out. It's in an ice storm or something. It's not sending nothing out.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, I don't know. I just made it up. It's made sense to me. It's like somehow nothing's coming back down. Or like you were saying, I can't get the picture. I can't get the picture. I'm like, why is she not getting the picture? Okay. You get discredited, or you seek to discredit someone else. You might suffer indignities at the hand of others. Picked on and nitpicked, taunted, mocked, and scorned. Ooh, besmirched. That's a big word. Besmirched. It's like somebody's just taken up some mud and smeared it all over your face. You're smirched. You just wore your beautiful white new cape and somebody comes along and splashes some cherry pie on you, right? You go, ooh, you get stained. Your personality gets stained because someone's saying things about you that stain you in other people's eyes or ears. You have blots against you because say you're the one that did do something really wrong. Now your name is blotted. People's memories about you get blots on them. They think of you now, and yes, you did do this. Maybe you just went out there and cussed the pastor out. Now you're blotted forever. Everybody's gonna remember that one. He might have forgave you. You're like, oh my gosh. But there's a blot. Sorry. There is a blot in other people's eyes and ears. You're the object, the spectacle of reproach, the brunt of jokes, the object of scorn. It's not a great place to be. Reproach creates rumors, lying stories, fabrications, tales. Not even anything real, just out of their imagination, a tale is created to demean you and degrade you. Lowers your value and respect and honor in other people's eyes. It depositions you in other people's eyes. As they're saying these things, these fabrications about you, that person that's reproaching you, and say you don't even know, and you're walking past them, and oops, they were actually talking about you. Oh, hey, listen about this. And it's not something really funny. It might be kind of funny even, but you know what? When you think of how that person was just besmirched by that person, those people in that little circle, that little clique or group, they need to be telling that other person, you don't do that.
Right.
This is not allowed, and I am not allowing such to come in my ear. And if you start, we are walking away from you, and you can be by yourself. Sometimes there needs to be real consequences, not just the threats of the consequence. You know, we do that easily with children. Don't you talk like that, you're going to get sent to the corner. And then they can't go out to play. And they hear friends outside playing, but you're not because you did such and such and such. What did I do? I ate them cookies, man. There's still cookies over there, right? Yay, Raymond. Like my mom's like, I'm saving them to give them to someone. I'm like, they need one less cookie to give. But my mother would count them like, okay, you're not going to go and play with Diane then. I'm like, okay, why can't you? She ate what she shouldn't have eaten. She's like looking at me like, who cares? I'm like, I don't know why she cares so much. But you know, with my mom, she was going to bag them up and give them to somebody. She didn't want 11 cookies in there. She wanted 12. My answer is, why don't you eat another one and then it's a nice 10? Trying to waggle my way out of this. So you do such things and you get upbraided.
What's the difference?
Abused, misused by people. Reproach can be physical. You know, it can be getting a beating. It can be somebody slapping you in your head, in your face, in your jaw because you just said something. Abuse is not just psychological. It is emotional. It is mentally. It is verbally. And it can be, of course, physically. And reproach, you know, you were a reproach in biblical times and you were crucified. Jesus was a reproach. The good news is he takes on our reproach for us when we lay it at the cross. If we are guilty of doing something that's reproachful to other people, we have to go to that cross because he's already made himself a reproach to all the men. He was mocked and scorned and taunted like you wouldn't believe. We don't even get into it in these movies, what these people were saying to him, the insults they were hurling at him. You just say, oh, come down off of that cross. Like, you, come off of that cross. We know what you can do. You're magnificent. You're the one that does miracles. I'm like, but why can't you take yourself off of that cross? Because you're guilty of blasphemy. And calling yourself the Son of God. And all these people are probably booing him and throwing stuff at him, spitting on him, wishing the worst for him while he's already like pegged up, you know, hands and feet, the mind. He's going through hell on earth for us. So make sure if you're guilty of reproach that you put that reproach upon him and let him take it from you so that you're not guilty of this pattern anymore in life. Or that if you were the victim of it, he will take your shame. God says in the Bible there, and I think it's Isaiah, that he takes upon himself your griefs. When you're shamed, you grieve over it. It is such a reproach. It is such a shame. It's such a belittling to you. And people are sitting there mocking you and taunting you over it. But instead, Jesus says, I make all things new. I make you new. And the thing is, it takes our heart and our mind to get that newness in and to step away from what we're told we are and step into who we really are. I was getting deliverance the other week, and Pastor Blaine, he was praying over me, and I saw a wooden block about this big, thin, blocked, routed around the edge. It was a reproach that had been stuck into my heart to block me in my ministry. And you say, okay, well, why didn't you know? I'm like, well, I felt something blocking me, but I didn't know what it was. But it's that person, this jealousy, this angriness that they have, that they want to do what I'm doing. And I'm like, honestly, I would never, I thought that I wanted to teach, but I thought that I couldn't teach. I thought there ain't going to be nobody coming here to listen. What should I even teach? What should I teach? And God says, I'll tell you everything, because he makes the burden easy. It's light. He told me to teach about this. And then he showed me how it relates to the Medusa spirit, which last week we did a little bit on that, but not a whole big schlamagle. But what I'm telling you here is how, it's saying minimize and belittle. Well, how do you think Medusa felt when her own goddess of her ardent worship abused her, belittled her, and turned her into a hideous monster, and no more mortal, but eternally a monster, and have to be alone because her gaze will kill you. So she had to be alone. I mean, that's pretty bad when you think your own God has reproached you that badly, and there's not ever. See, our God forgives. If we can recognize these things in ourselves, we can ask forgiveness. We can ponder for a few months, maybe. Maybe someone would be like, wait a minute, I think that was reproach. Oh, my goodness, my brother has reproach in his heart towards me. Oops. Oops. Yes, Brett.
So getting back to that one, so if he has reproach, he also would be taking up other things, or
Humans will.
no? Yeah, okay.
Humans
So
usually
that's not
will,
the demons.
because we are flesh. And we, as soldiers for Christ, you have to discipline your mind. You have to put your helmet on, and you got to train that tongue that, don't say it. Don't go up to that person and say it. You got to train your tongue and your mind. Don't say it while you're driving down the street. Don't go take that walk away from your wife and say, la 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 la, as you go out to get the mail or something. Don't do these things. We got to train ourselves that this is wrong behavior. And if we want to be put on serious missions for Jesus Christ, even recon missions if you're military, we have to have the right kind of heart, the right kind of response to that situation where we have been reproached, but it falls off of us like a water on the ducky in a pond. That duck ain't getting all wet. It's got oil on its feathers. We need the oil of the Holy Ghost to make us have those ducky feathers where we can just say, quack, quack, quack. Yes, ma'am, Yvonne.
Some years ago, the Lord told me that he was rolling the reproach off of my
Yes,
family.
yes.
And I was like, what is that? And I went to Joshua chapter 6 where the Lord told them that before they went into the promised land, that he had to take the reproach off of them.
Yes.
My father had been a rolling stone. And when it wasn't until after my mother passed away, my oldest sister told us that my parents didn't get married until I was 13 years old. I'm the youngest.
Wow.
And
Wow, my
he
goodness.
told me to gather up my family and to sit down and tell them what he said and then to pray.
Nice.
And I'm glad we are having this today because it's explaining. Because I felt like our portion of the family were like the black sheep.
Yes. Oh,
With
yes.
my mother's other siblings and stuff. They didn't like my father. He was a lot older than my mother. And
Wow.
my father's family didn't like my mother because he had been married before. And it was like in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, family really is very good at reproaching each other. It's terrible. And it's when we can see it, we can just say, oh, it's just that. Sometimes they're like psychological terms. We say, okay, so this person has this kind of disorder, and you can say, okay, so there's this, and it's not to stigmatize or put a name or a label. It's just like, but this is the issue then. With this, it's just reproach. It's something that God can handle, because we're made to come here on this earth to take over this earth, to take dominion over such demons like this. This is who we're supposed to tread and trample on, not let it tread and trample on us. Yes, Brent?
So I had people say this to me, probably everybody in the room has. Now when you speak, they're like, I don't feel any love in that. And you know there was love from the Holy Spirit in you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a spirit love, but they didn't like feel it in their soul part. Is it because there's a reproach there of some sort, possibly?
Possibly.
Okay.
Some kind of just something stuck in, another, cog in the wheel that's broken or something. Sometimes we can say things with our voice and we're saying the right thing, but it doesn't mean the person is able to give that love. And sometimes we're not able to receive the love either. And maybe it's been such a big hurt that at that time we can't and don't want their love until, a follow-up time, and, let the flames simmer down. Yes?
The majority of the people of the world doesn't know about generational curses.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't know what your father, your grandfather, grandmother did.
Nope.
So when it happens in your immediate family, you just think, this is it. I mean, why are they acting like that? Why are they doing that? What's wrong with them? You know what I mean?
Yes, it's
You know
crazy.
your granddad did the same thing, you know?
Yes,
And
right.
you just think they're bad and everybody's bad. So when you get delivered and they give a testimony, the people around them will say, I was bad and God delivered me. But when you see that person, you know what comes to your mind? They were bad.
Yes.
And you remember what they said when they were bad.
Yeah.
You remember the good part where God delivered them.
Right.
You just remember they were bad. They're bad.
Yes. It sticks. It sticks so much easier. It's like
Well,
like a
something's
caramel
salty.
stuck in your teeth. It's just like, this is kind of fun more to chew on, because then it makes you, the person hearing, might feel better because they're bad. That means nobody's looking at me.
Something's taunting them.
Yes.
Telling the other person.
Tormenting.
Remember what they said?
It's tormenting. Hold on. Just a minute. I've got on that. Okay, go ahead.
Just a comment
Go ahead.
before you go further.
Mhm.
Something Pastor Blaine said. He said that you can vent, but there will be a price you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
kind of because sometimes people think that, okay, you just need to get it off your chest, just go ahead. But that's not, you can't vent to another person. What I took away when he said that was, Lord, help me to vent only to you.
Yeah. Like I just asked do that. I say, I'm only telling you, but now help me with this.
Because we talk different, or at least we should talk different when we talk to God.
Right.
Because he knows our heart.
Yes.
Another person doesn't.
He knows we're so human. He knows what does hurt us.
Right.
He knows what brings it up into the boiling point. He knows just who is going to be sent your way. And what I've done a lot of times lately, past few years, is what's the lesson in it? Because if this has repeated itself 3 or 4 times, or maybe a few hundred, then obviously I'm going around the same mountain again with either the same person or the same type of situation, something very close. So it's a cycling around that Hydra keeps bringing around, and that means God's like, yeah, and Hydra's going to be allowed to do this because you have a lesson to learn and you haven't learned it yet. And for apparently within our church, there's a lot of issues with tongues. And the tongue is in your heart. The roots of the tongue's in your heart. So what's bitter in your heart, it's going to come out bitterness in your mouth.
Right.
You're going to offer reproaches to people instead of offering them some cherry pie. Yeah. So there's scandalous remarks, sometimes things very pointed and hate-filled, competition, drama queens, drama kings, and little drama princesses. Sometimes it's a lot of little princessing going on. They really think they're it, and nobody can make a reproach against them, but they don't even realize they are. They are it already because they think the world owes them. They think the world owes them, and you say, well, how is that going to reproach them? Because they're reproaching you for not bowing down and kissing their butt. You know? Yes.
So I have another question. This has to do with the hierarchy of demons. So you mentioned Leviathan.
Yes.
Is it like a throwing spirit to Jezebel?
I'm not really sure on all of them. I mean, they are very high up ones, yes. Leviathan is, Jezebel is, they work together in different areas. You know, this one I would say conjoins more with Leviathan because it strokes a person's pride. So they stroke their pride, you know, psychologically, you do something to somebody else because then it makes you feel better because you just put them down. And that ain't right. But people do it all the time. And we don't realize that they're just trying to make themselves feel better because maybe they feel crappy about something, or they just have a habit, maybe a Hydra type pattern of doing this. And it seems really popular in Baltimore to have this reproaching Hydra type spirit and to disrespect everybody else and elevate yourself. And it's, again, I think it's because sometimes a lot of portions of Baltimore are, you know, we got a lot of people in abject poverty, you know, and it's sick, you know, and then people start saying, well, why shouldn't we just be communists? Because then everything's, well, the communists make everybody poor. There's the elite and then everybody else, you're going to get cream of rice soup for the next 200 days. Aren't you happy about it? And like, we were happier when we could choose between Frosted Flakes and just a piece of toast bread, you know. Even sometimes we don't have money for Frosty Flakes. That's for sure. I remember my kids, we would buy one of those great big cheap generic bags, you know, for the month. After that, you're on toast duty. Buttered toast, and you're lucky we got the sugar to put on it too. And they'd be like, "Can I have two?" And they liked it. It was like there was nothing nutritious going out of the house in the morning. It was kind of, they all loved it. They loved it, and now they said, "Mom, we didn't know that we were poor." And I'm like, I tried to make it fun, you know. It's like, hey, you got sprinkles of butter on there and some cinnamon toast. Like, yay, cinnamon toast. Like, okay, that costs about 20 cents for breakfast. We can do a loaf of bread for breakfast a week. we've got it nailed, you know. It was crazy. And now I eat yogurt. You know how much yogurt is? And I like that good, thick Greek stuff. I like this one brand called Greek Gods. I'm like, oh, it's got vanilla and honey, and it's got way too many calories. And I'm like, I love this stuff. And sometimes it's $7 for this little thing, but it's only me and Jim in the house. I could spend $7 in a week on myself now.
Come on.
We wouldn't do that in a month before when we were raising kids. It's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is living it up. It really is. All the yogurt I want. Okay, so after 12, your reputation is dismissed and gone. You're nagged on. People try to deposition you out of your position, out of your title. Maybe it's just like, hey, I oversee this factory line here. And, you know, but that's it. You know, it's not like something super, but somebody else wants it. They want just that little tiny bit of authority that you have. Kundalini will run rampant. It will lie and lie and lie to the perpetrator all about you, so that it's not even reproaching you for a sin that you're doing. It's reproaching you for something it wants to put on you. Riling conversations and believe in your own version of the story. This and this happened, and oh my gosh, somebody else is going to tell the story now, and now you did this. Like, no, that's not how it happened. But now 10 people believe the wrong version of the story. And you're like, what is going on here? Because they want you to be looked at with reproach. Here we go again. Leviathan twists the words and instigates deception. You're berated and censured. Sometimes there's no success story and all continual victim story. Because that spirit of reproach has reproached you so much, you are stuck in that place. There is no way that you know in your own being to get out of it, save God. Yes, Frank?
I keep starting with points, so I keep stopping from doing that. Keep doing it, but I just want to tell these mind-controlling spirits and things, are they like connected? That's
Yes.
what Reproach did.
It's all connected. We've done what? Octopus spirit, and I can't remember what else we did. Octopus, even mermaid spirits. Boy, did they get in your head. All that type of thing. Any of these marine spirits that we have done, those ones are particularly into controlling your mind and keeping you in that groove, so they got you where they want you at. Very good. You recognize that. Reprimands come your way. You're always getting reprimanded. You don't even want to go to work. I got reprimanded so much at my place because I wanted to put a whole lot of French fries in the little bags. I'm like, these people are paying all this money for these French fries. We gotta fill them up. And because no, it needs to look like this. You're cheating people. I was definitely reprimanded that day. You were charged with faults, sometimes in a very extreme severity of manner. This is your fault. You have done this, blah, 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 and the people are like crashing down on you. They're slamming you to the bottom of the muck, of the mire, of the swamp. It's not good. It's reproach. Text bombing you. And they always have to try to win. They always have to be like, no, you're horrible. You did this, and I'm not letting go of this. And they need the last word in a text. You're like, this ain't happening. Delete you. Stories tellings that are not true or humiliating real tales. You know, it's just so fun when you go to see Aunt Sue and they have to tell you something about you when you were little and make sure you feel really stupid. Or, oh, I heard this. And it's technically reproaching you because they want the whole family to remember it and laugh at you again. See what I'm saying? It's about that. Getting other people together to be laughing at you. Or like, oh, that's not a good person. They do this kind of sin. Do you realize that we come here on a Tuesday night and tons of sins are exposed, just as much as popcorn coming out of a pan with no lid on it, right? It's just sin, boom, 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 and nobody cares. By the end of the night, we don't even know what happened, but we feel good. And like, I think I remember something, I don't know, you know? And like, nobody cares. They're just happy that, hey, they went up. Brett, do you feel good?
I do, because them things left went back where they came from, and I don't want to go to hell with them. The love of God is rolling.
Right. Yeah.
It's still going to be there. Jesus doesn't ever change.
Right. And all these people that have cut us to the quick or text bombed us or tailed on us or, you know, just say really humiliating things or do humiliating things. In the Bible, being raped is considered a very high form of reproach and shame. I have a person that I know that is a he, and he was touched inappropriately. And he said, first it like kind of like scared him, and then he realized that he just had a fear now. You know, it just brought something into him. And he's like thinking, where does it come from? And he said the only thing it was being touched wrongly by another man. He was like, this is playing with his head, you know? And it's a reproach. One of the meanings of reproach is to strip off and expose, as in stripping off a woman's clothes to expose them nakedly before them, to shame them. Or when an enemy tribe would come in, say it's let's see, Amorites. We'll pick on the Amorites today. Or we could do the Amalekites. How about the Amalekites instead, okay? Them nasty little Amalekites. And they come, and they're going to go, and they're coming up against Joshua. And say Joshua wins one time, and then say another town gets overtaken by the Amalekites again. They take it back. What are they going to do? They're going to strip your women. And then they're going to pick out the pretty one and say, hey, you, over there, you. Yeah? You figure you're going to be made a slave? No. They're going to take you and be a wife. And now you got to be married to this guy that just burned your town down and everybody else is slaves, but they're stripping you. They strip you of your dignity to shame you into being, doing what you have to do to save the rest of your tribe. And now you got to go marry this guy, have sex with this guy, have his children, but he's always going to remind you that, yeah, you're beautiful, but you're still an Israelite. You know what I mean? And it's about shame, reproach. There's a lot to it. God would show different forms of his own reproach against the Israelites or other countries by famine, with them having disease and pestilence, when he would be really ticked off and having gone to them gently, the gentle reproach. Need to return to me, my children. And he's like, hey, and then, it didn't snow on Mount Hermon. We're not going to have much water coming down the Jordan this year into our crops and into our fields. A drought means there's going to be a famine. Nothing's going to grow. Now it says even in the Bible, the cattle would be perplexed. They don't even know where to find some water at. They don't have nothing to eat. Everything's dried up, dry as a bone, dust bowl, like the Depression. That's a sign of reproach from the Lord. Poverty. You're doing good with your money, and then all of a sudden it just keeps going out the window. Maybe because you didn't pay your tithes. But sometimes you have to save it up a little bit at a time. God doesn't mind, as long as he knows in your heart you're going to pay this. Mm-hmm. He's not a hard taskmaster. It's best to do things right away if you can, but I'm not sure that he's going to say, well, bless my soul, I got something that I really didn't need. It's owed me, of course, my 10%, but now little Junior over there, he's 3 months old and his parents are out in the winter weather because they chose to do the tithe. I think we have to have some wisdom when we do things. Shoot for the best goal possible, but God, he always has a second chance and a third chance and a fourth and a number 2 billion chances and all of that. He's always waiting for us to make things right. He's always waiting for us to repent. Military defeat, imprisonment, children die, widowhood, remaining single, mutilation, barrenness. These are signs of reproach coming to people that maybe someone reproaches you and they, have spoken against you. Or it can be something straight from the throne room of God. And then again, sometimes this is how Satan wants to show up, because he doesn't like you, so he doesn't want you having a good job. He doesn't like you, so your farm is going to go under and you're not going to be able to sell it. We're seeing this happening all the time in our country. The farmers going down, having to sell their farms for pennies to the Chinese people because nobody else wants it because it's been a dust bowl. And you think that, what is up with this? This is terrible. Why should we have to buy a ton of stuff from Brazil? Brazil's got good beef and everything, but why can't we have more beef farms in America? So, when we're overtaken, it is personal torment. Reproach causes us to become the exact opposite of Christ. I'm just going to say it again. Reproach causes us, when we become involved with it, when we take it on and we start agreeing with what those nasty demons say to us about another person, how we see them, how we perceive them with our eyes, and what we hear coming out of their mouths, and we take a reproach against them. And yeah, maybe they're doing something wrong. Let's say it isn't even just all made up in their head. Say they really have something against us. We are supposed to go to our brother that has an ought against us. It's not that, hey, I have an ought against you. Let's meet after. It's like, I think, there's something going on between us, and we need to talk. We might need a mitigator, a counselor, and say, let's talk this out. It's the adult approach that nobody does. Nobody wants to recognize that maybe I'm wrong. The other person's always wrong, but of course, never yourself. They did me wrong. But that's not how we're supposed to be. Because Jesus says, no matter what, you are to love. Bless your enemy and those who reproach you. We're supposed to be blessing them. And that's hard. How about this verse? Love is not easily offended. Love is not easily offended. If we can make ourselves love that person who's being reproachful. And yes, God can roll away whatever reproach you have that people have done against you. He can roll it away and there can be blue skies. He's always looking towards the future. So it's not that we're supposed to look back, except for maybe how this came about and got in so we can get rid of it. It is not about saying, no, it's the other person. Forget about them. Forget about their nonsense. They don't have to apologize to you, They don't have to apologize. They don't have to come crawling. They don't have to give you little gift bags and stuff. It's about you saying, you know what? I'm going to be like Jesus and wipe this off the plate. There is no record of wrongs. We are not to bear grudges. We're not to write a whole book of a record of wrongs. And that was a book, Ted Decker, I think, had something about that, I think. And it was very poignant how this person came out of bearing the records of wrongs in their life. I can't remember the name of it though. So live in his presence. Jesus, one of the titles of Jesus is he is your hiding place. And that's where we gotta go. It isn't just, interceding for the other person. It's fixing yourself where you can say, I'm going to let it slide. I am not going to have to reproach them back. It doesn't matter. If that's their opinion, go to them and say, hey, why do you have this opinion? You keep saying these things, and I'm getting the idea that we're not friends anymore. Maybe you don't like me, but we don't even know each other. You want to go to lunch. You'll probably get that. But it's also that there is the big person way. Once we have taken our Pampers off and we don't need a potty anymore, we need to be able to go to a person and say, there's some issues I would like to discuss, and maybe get an elder to be with you or something. One of the elders or pastors that say, look, I don't want either one of us getting in an argument. I don't want to fight. I want somebody that helps us see the Jesus in one another. So that's all I can really got to say, except reproach is witchcraft on our behalf. When we send things to other people that are rude and mean and hateful, it is witchcraft. They will be damaged. There will be something wrong in their atmosphere. They might feel a dagger plunking in them somewhere. They might have some real physical feeling. They're like, oh, my knee keeps hurting all the time. Well, take that big spear out of it and it'll stop hurting. They might feel a fire, in their bone. And it isn't that, it's a prophetic fire. It's they just had a fiery dart there. Yes, sir.
One mentioned about with the it's called backstabbing.
Yes.
I was in a deliverance, and I could see this person. They looked like a peacock. They had spears, swords, knives, daggers, and forks in them.
Wow.
And what I had to do was physically
Yeah.
take your hand and hold one back and pull them out, and everyone individually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then you need, the best thing to do after that is apply the blood of Jesus to those wounds and fill them up with a balm of Gilead and fill them up with joy and love and peace. It's funny because I had a dream a few weeks ago, and I was dreaming that I was in a kind of like a high school schoolyard and people were all around, and all of a sudden a big fight started up. And all these people were like, wow, but these fighters were trying to get more and more people to beat this kid up. And I'm like, I'm just grandma. I can't even fight. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And God says to me, scream peace into the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I'm like, no, this ain't happening. And everybody's looking at me like there's a fight and they're pounding this kid. And I'm screaming peace into the situation. Peace into the situation. And that was in my dream. He says, that's my answer. That's my answer to reproach is peace. So before you deal with a person, before you even take up that thing and let it whirl around in your head, speak peace into it. Speak peace to them. Speak peace into yourself and in all those nasty little tunnels between you, because we learned before that when people, are like backstabbing one another, when you have maybe, like if I backstab you, I have just created a horrible sin against you and something like a tunnel or maybe a thread or a filament, because that thing is going to come in and stick into you. That fiery dart might stick into you. And now you've got a piece of me in you. See? If I sent out mean things to everybody and like poisoned cookies, you would all have poisoned cookies, and if you ate it, everybody would get sick, right? But it's the same thing with our words. And after enough of those things coming from me, you might feel actually physically ill. Or you might feel a jingle jangle in your spirit realm. And that's what people do sometimes. They just keep harping and harping on a certain person. And they keep doing it again and again. But we need to break that weird little nasty soul tie. So don't forget, when you break the arrows out of you, or the sledgehammer, the battle axe that might be sticking in your back or in your gut or something, don't forget to break those and burn out of you any tunnels, any filaments, any type of hooks that people might have in you with their words, with their anger and hatred against you, because it is there. And we learned before that if you don't do these things and close those tunnels, they'll keep coming through. And they'll keep putting little curses in you. They don't even know sometimes, most of the time, that that's what is happening. They're just venting, as Maria said. They're venting about this. They're venting about that. Or maybe they're teasing in a wicked, evil way.
Would that be an unrighteous soul tie then?
Yeah, very unrighteous. So you got to break it out of you. We're responsible for our own stuff. you know? And what did you need, Brent?
So I had a comment about like repelling that kind of attack. So I was in some seminars by a man called Bill Gothard, who it's really sad what happened in ministry. I became corrupted and all that and backslid away from God. But he
Okay.
had some really good scriptural upbuilding things out there in his seminars. One of those things is he said is the power to spoken blood. Just speak blessing into the air and ask for a hedge of thorns and a wall of fire from God. And he said that protects you.
Yeah.
I thought, it literally works.
Yes.
So.
Right. Yes. When you do know a person is on your case and they're not in the way of being able to help themselves out of that type of perspective they have of you. Their own opinion is it's stuck there. That's it until something godly happens to break that. Yeah, you can put up your walls of fire. I don't even have walls of fire. I ask for a sphere of fiery protection. So it is above me and it is up below me, because we see in the demonic realm, sometimes evil black vines are coming up out of the floors and fire is coming down upon us from the skies. So I use a complete sphere of protection in that way, and it's not easy. This is something that we have to recognize in ourselves or in other people, but it is our responsibility and our accountability to God to either get ourselves out of being like this or recognize it. It might take a lot of attempts and a little bit of breaking things down and telling ourselves that we have to love the sinner but hate that sin. Love them because they are there for you. If you're in a burning building, they're going to be coming in after you and getting your butt out of there. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's feasible because remember when my mom was still living, this is my sister-in-law back home. I sent money to buy the Reproach medication.
Yes.
So she gave her one pill, and for the next 2 weeks, she never gave her pill anymore. So she started getting strokes. And after like a year and a half of getting strokes, we couldn't stop it because it started like that. So I'll carry this against that my sister-in-law. I said, I will never forgive her. I will never. So I was just carrying on and on. And when I got saved, God kept talking to me about forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Yes.
I will be talking to people, telling people, please forgive everybody. But me, I was holding that. Like very tight.
Yeah.
Because one day one of my nephews said, Auntie, how can't you just burn your blacklist? I said, no, I'm not ready to burn it yet.
Yeah.
But I'm teaching people. So like you say, we have to think, be like Jesus.
Yes.
And just bring love. So
That's
when
it.
she had a baby, she has her babies through C-section.
Okay.
When she has the next baby, it was through C-section. And I'm here, she's back home. So I'm just, my mind is just like, oh, I have to act like Jesus. I have to love her. I have to love this baby.
Yes.
This is my nephew. I have to give him something. So I send money because I couldn't send some like diaper or something. I send money. I said, here is my gift to the baby. Buy stuff.
Yeah.
That money landed back home, and the child got sick. The child was sick. We need oxygen. We need this emergency care. And they took the money and it saved the baby. It literally saved the baby because back home, if you don't have money, they don't do nothing.
Yeah.
They let you die. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just give this. I'm gonna be somebody that knows Jesus. I'm gonna just act like that. So I gave it, but later on I hear my brother telling everybody that if it wasn't for her, this baby would be dead. I don't. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
Okay, I did something. So I keep telling people, please let's just change our heart and act like Jesus. So when you say we have to be the one to act like Jesus and bring love to the situation, I said,
yeah.
that's true because we really help.
That's cool. What country?
You're from Cameroon.
Cameroon. Oh, okay. My daughter, I think, was a little tiny bit of Cameroon. She was on like a mission trip or something. She went into Ghana and everything all through there. Was it not Ivory Coast? Is that Ivory? No, Gold Coast.
Like
some kind of coast.
Central Africa. It's near Nigeria.
Yeah.
Near
Yes.
Nigeria.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad you're here and you could tell us this. Bless that baby, Lord. Bless that kid all his life. So I think what we should do is pray. Is pray. And you know where you might be upon that type of list, you know, like if you are, you know, holding a reproach with somebody, or if it's just something that's happening to you or has happened and you think you've forgotten about it, but I kind of jangled your last nerve. And maybe it's, we got an issue here. So I think we should really pray before I let you go. And even, you know, perhaps bind this thing up so that we can think clearly and it won't come in and be such a bother with us. I believe it really should be bound off of our city and cast out too, but people live in a state of reproach in our city. And it's something we're so used to. You go somewhere else and you're like Boston, it's not like that there. You're like, I don't understand. I'm talking to my daughter. I'm like, I don't get it. Nobody's mad here. There's nobody yelling and screaming and cussing anybody out. Like, it's cool, but I don't know how to act here because I'm just used to everybody being angry. You go in the store, somebody's screaming out in the parking lot. Yeah, it's just normal. And I'm like, it was just, the atmosphere was so different. Oh, let us pray.